Imagine your life is defined by a single, unwavering sound. As a 14th century farmer, you chant old folk songs to the rhythm of your work. On Sundays, you sit in the nave of a stone cathedral, bathed in the Lord's music. These are Gregorian chants, monophonic, soaring, and stagnant. They reflect the perfection of a divine order, a world where every note has a place and every soul has a master. To you, the creation of music is of no concern. It is a holy utility, controlled by the Church, as stable and eternal as the heavens themselves. You're not yet aware that what will befall you will change music forever. One morning you visit the city to sell your crop, and you witness a sight that shatters the divine. The longer you stay, the more the air begins to thicken with the scent of decay. You flee back to your village, but the plague follows. An uninvited house guest trailing behind you. Suddenly, those you love are unrecognisable. The cathedrals fall silent. The choir boys are dead. The idea of a god who could be so cruel begins to weigh on the collective minds of Europe. In this new world, the only music left is the ambient, unrelenting drone of funeral chants, circling your thoughts like vultures. In your desperation, you remember the Mass for the avoidance of death. Pope Clement himself promises that these verses, this holy music, would act as a shield, an ordained defence against the pestilence. You watch your wife fly before you, recounting the Mass endlessly until her breath fails. Your children are already gone. The Church's shield has shattered. The Lord's music has lied to you. The Black Death didn't just kill half of Europe, it murdered the old rules of sound. The holy music of faith was overturned the moment the people felt forsaken, and as the bodies piled up in the streets, the funeral chants became more than a prayer. It became an earworm that would eventually infect the DNA of Western music. In Florence, Giovanni Boccaccio observed a phenomenon that would have been unthinkable just a year prior. As the structures of the church and the state collapsed under the weight of the dead, a new social contract emerged. Boccaccio described groups of survivors who decided that if death was inevitable, they would meet it with a glass of wine and a song. By singing secular worldly songs in the shadow of the plague, they were declaring that the Lord's music had failed them. Music was no longer a tool for salvation, it was a tool for distraction. After all, if holy music couldn't save them, then what was the use in staying devout? Into this vacuum of faith stepped Guillaume de Machaut. He was the prime figure of the new art style. A canon diplomat and poet, Machaut lived a life of prestige, but more importantly, he survived the Black Death. Though he was a man of the church, Machaut's genius was almost exclusively secular. He took the perfect circular Gregorian structures and broke them. He introduced syncopation, offbeat, jagged notes that mimicked an anxious living heartbeat. His music was no longer looking for the divine, it was looking for the human. The words changed from worship to wrath. The sound was no longer perfect, because the world was no longer perfect. This coincided with the rise of Danse Macabre, the dance of death. In an era where demise was universal and inescapable, it had to be personified. Death became a dancer, and the music of the plague began to swing and skip with the rhythm of rattling bones. But how do you play the music of a skeleton? In the woodcuts of the era, Death is never shown with a heavenly harp. He carries the hurdy-gurdy and the fiddle. These were the dirty instruments of the street, the beggar and the blind. The hurdy-gurdy with its mechanical buzzing drone, and the fiddle with its screeching high notes. This became the sonic representation of a ribcage in motion. It was the birth of a trope we still use in horror today, the solo, out-of-tune string instrument that tells us something is deeply, fundamentally wrong. Emerging from this darkness was the Day of Wrath. Originally a funeral chant, it became the secret connection that links the Middle Ages to the modern screen. This piece is the DNA of horror. Even today, without knowing the Latin context, our brains react to these specific four notes as a musical trigger for dread. From the opening of The Shining to the burning homestead in Star Wars, the Day of Wrath remains the sound of widespread devastation. The lyricism of the chant shifted the focus of the listener. It describes Judgment Day, where souls were summoned not for a peaceful rest, but to face a terrifying account of their lives. Music was becoming more human. It stopped looking at the sky and started looking at the ground. This leads us to one of the most infamous sounds in history, the Devil's Tritone. Spanning 3 whole tones, the Devil's interval was seen as hellish, an unsettling dissonance that felt like summoning a shadow. Whilst it wasn't legally banned by the church, as some myths state, it was avoided by holy men as an ungodly mistake. But the Black Death proved that life itself was dissonant. By embracing the tritone, composers weren't trying to summon Satan, they were trying to describe the human experience. They realised the fundamental truth that defines music to this day. You cannot have a true resolution without first having tension. Every emotional crescendo in a modern symphony, every jump scare in a Hollywood score owes its power to this 14th century realisation. The ugly sounds of the earth were seen to be just as vital as the pure sounds of the heavens. The Black Death was an apocalypse which silenced Europe, but from that silence emerged a new sound. It was the voice that didn't just sing to God, but sang for the people left behind. The terror of the 1340s acted as a forge, melting down the rigid perfections of the Middle Ages and casting the raw, emotional foundations of the Renaissance. Today, when you feel a chill down your spine from a movie score, or you find yourself humming a nursery rhyme about the ring around the roses, you're listening to a 700-year-old echo. The shift from religious to secular music began a trend which allowed for experimental sound and ideas to flourish and shape the music of today. We are still dancing to the music of the plague. A sound born of shadow, it ultimately taught us how to find the light. If this video was interesting to you, check out my video essay playlist which is on screen at the moment, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. But for now, I've been Gekko, and thank you so much for watching.